And I thought we would start off with a little bit of this first. Could you hear that okay?
Yeah.
That was good. I enjoyed that. So I suppose you should really start off by saying that not only as a student did you know Luke, you know Luke and you knew Jody, but also obviously you knew me at the same time, didn't you?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I think we should start off by first of all, whereabouts am I at the moment?
Well, the backdrop in the photo there is actually
Yes.
the old St David's complex
Yeah.
location before it was all knocked down and turned into a housing complex.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Derek, I'm trying to think when I first met you, how old you would have been, about 13 or 14?
I was about 13 at the time, actually,
Yeah.
when I first came in contact with you through becoming my music teacher.
Yeah. Although having said that, you say music teacher, obviously at St David's, I think you also knew Mr. Keith Murphy, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I used to get quite a lot of feedback from him as well, you know. So.
Oh, so you had eyes inside the actual.
Oh yes.
No, no. To be honest, Keith was actually my favourite music teacher. I mean, to be honest, I've maintained that, and even when I've seen him a couple of times, I remember meeting him in Wallingford because I think that's where he lives. And I bumped into him one day and we're having a wee chat, and I said, "Oh Christ, it's been ages since I seen you last," you know. And he was just asking how I was doing, you know. It was just like the old days when I used to wander into his classroom, you know.
Yep, yep. And back then, when you were 13, 14 and studying to be a musician, which you are now, a band leader, did it ever cross your mind then that you would be one of these activists that's actively involved in trying to undermine law enforcement and the government here in Scotland?
Well, not really then.
No.
I didn't really think that sort of thing would go down here in Scotland. You know, I mean, realistically, you know that a lot of crazy stuff happens in America and things like that with wrongful conviction, but you never actually. You never suspect it's going to happen here in Scotland, but then the more I've done my digging, I've uncovered so much in the way of cover-ups and wrongful conviction. It's absolutely scary to think that it actually occurs, you know.
Well, it was you that actually, Derek, that alerted me, I think, to Sandra Lane's book, wasn't it? Because you started off by watching Making a Murderer. We had a chat about that. Obviously, you know, we go back a long, long time.
Yeah, about 20 years, I think.
Yes,
20
yeah. Yeah, and you've always been a resident in and around the sort of Newton Grange area, a regular at the Dean Tavern for the accordion clubs there, you know, so.
Yeah, well, I was actually, when I was at St David's, I was actually living in Whitecraig, which is one of the adjacent towns round about the Dalkeith area. But I did attend Newton Grange to perform a bit when I first started as a musician. And I had loads of friends all over, you know, the course of Midlothian. I had made tons and tons of friends through school and everything. And I'm actually pleased I'm still in contact with a lot of them now, you know.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I must admit that way back then, all I remember you as was somebody that was mad keen on Scottish music. But even then, as a youngster, I remember once coming along and showing you a thing or two on keyboard by the rapper Eminem.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think youngsters have this fascination with all sorts of different things, don't they?
definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the thing. I mean, I was pretty much very open to things, and I used to take a lot of the stuff you taught me to the music department in St David's as well, and that's when Keith sort of highlighted how much he saw in me as potential.
yeah, yeah.
And
Keith,
Mr. Thorne as well.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh no, Keith. I've had many a chats with him because he used to come along and do examinations for me for the students because of course he's related to a very good friend of mine in Bonnyrigg, Wilson Pride, who's also a just retired music teacher.
yeah,
But he's related to Wilson's wife, Mary. So yeah, it was a whole sort of small world scenario, wasn't it? I mean, I used to come along to see you on I think a Friday afternoon because
it was.
even back then, it was an early school finish on a Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Over at White Craig, but I distinctly remember a conversation we had where we talked about Making a Murderer because obviously you'd watched Making a Murderer, deeply shocked by it, as are a lot of people here in Scotland. And then you said to me about the fact that, but you remember that Luke Mitchell case, and you
yeah.
remember what you said. You said to me, even well, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I think the actual thing that jumped out at me initially, well, especially knowing both of the names in question, I knew both Luke and Jody. I mean, I was actually 2 years above them,
Yes.
but we had sort of mutual friends and circles and things like that because I didn't really have friends just in the 1 year group. I had
Yeah.
friends from all different year groups just through speaking to people. The music department it was a sort of headquarters for everyone sort of having a chat and things, and
Yeah.
I knew them through that. But then the thing that really stuck out to me as a glaring thing between Making a Murderer and the Luke Mitchell case, it was the parallels between the treatment of Luke by the police and also Brendan Dassey when they were interrogated. I mean, if you actually look at the two scenarios, the parallels between them, it's just staggering.
Yeah, but if I can just take you back to when, because you said to me that even at the time, back in 2003, 4, 5, you had serious doubts. I mean, I suppose I'll put it to you. Do you know that Luke Mitchell is definitely 100% innocent, or is it a case of you've got serious doubts about his conviction? Because I think what you alluded to was the fact that you, even at the time, back in 03, 04, or 5, you had
Yeah.
serious doubts about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I had my doubts because, I mean, how many times have we seen it before where the media will put so much pressure on the conviction of a suspect because they just what they get off on is what I term as gutter press. Where they
Mm-hmm.
like to dramatize a story and turn it into something that's actually not. Because they're not going to sell papers if they're actually going to be saying, "Oh, this is a possibility." With them, they're using emotive language. They're almost making it personal. The actual people who are reporting for them. I mean, just the other day, I was alerting you to more recently some articles that have been coming from the same journalist
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
sorry, but go.
negative.
Yeah, but just sorry to interrupt. Just going back to when this whole case suddenly erupted. I mean, I remember, back in 03 when this was a huge story. You know, what was the sort of presumption of innocence like for Luke?
Well, to be honest, there was not a lot of support in Luke's camp at that point because of the fact that there was a certain community ostracization of the actual the Mitchell family, and I mean it's heartbreaking when you look back on it. That I mean the amount of support even now that we've managed to get on board by the official support group for Luke and for getting justice for Jody. You know, I mean, if that support was around back then, you certainly would have had a lot more voices to be calling into question the integrity of the conviction. You know.
But I would put it to you, therefore, that because you knew Luke and Jody, you had questions about it, whereas for people in the general community, appalled at what had happened, it almost as if they needed to blame somebody, and the press were happy to fuel that blame of somebody. And as Luke Mitchell said himself in the documentary it aired just last week, the local weirdo. I mean, is that how he was perceived back then?
To be honest, he was used as a scapegoat back then because the put it this way, the police, they wanted to just pin it all on Luke so as they could have a sort of cut and shut type case, and that would, if they cut and shut the case, that would appease the media, which would then appease the actual public and society, because the police probably didn't want the idea floating around that there could be a killer still out there or killers still wandering the streets, because the police, they play this this sort of game of wanting to serve and protect, but they're not so quick to come out and admit to when they get it wrong, you know.
Look, the one thing I don't think either of us, I mean, I was kind of half joking about, wanting to take down law enforcement and government. That is not what we're all about. And I'm sure both of us have huge respect for the police. And we appreciate the kind of pressure that they were under, because when this case blew up, it would have sent shockwaves throughout the area.
Yeah.
It would have been a huge talking point.
Definitely. I mean, it was actually, it was spilling out into area after area after area. You know, it was just a talking point around all of the conjoining towns round about Dalkeith area. And, it was really everywhere you turned, that was the talk at that point,
Yes. Yeah, and understandably so. And as I say, I've spoken to retired members of law enforcement that have said exactly what I've just said. That the pressure on the police to solve this case is huge. Yes. But obviously, pinning it on the quote local weirdo seemed to be quite an easy thing to do.
Oh yeah, to be honest, they were looking for a stereotype scenario, and they would have had that there, But then a point I've actually made, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it to you at one point myself. I listen to the same sort of bands that Luke and Jody and everything listened to, and I was a very varied music taste.
Yes.
You know that for sure, because.
Yes.
We've had numerous chats about various rock music and bands and things like that over the years, and you knew that I was into listening to a lot of the different genres of music,
Yes.
But that didn't necessarily put me in a pigeonhole that I was going to go out and commit such a heinous crime, just because you listen to a type of music. People shouldn't be pigeonholed for their beliefs or anything like that, Let's look at the hard facts of the situation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Derek, I just remember in my own youth, as a 14, 15-year-old, going to youth clubs, going around town. What made me laugh really was there was one girl, for example, who, in 1 minute she was a mod. 6 months later, she was like, a punk, and then she was like a rocker, and it just depended on what the boyfriend was into, that she would then change her sort of appearance. And it's like really, really bizarre, isn't it? You're 14 years old. You don't know then what you don't know very much, really, do you? Other than you're trying to enjoy life as much as you possibly can, being that age. But yeah, it just struck me that with Luke Mitchell, Damien Eccles in the West Memphis Three, so many similarities between the way that this whole sort of devil worship stuff, and quoting stuff that he'd written down and put on books. I mean, I would go so far as to say I can remember a lad at school that sat behind me in this posh, very posh grammar school, and he was totally obsessed by Hitler and the Nazis. But that doesn't mean to say he's going to go out and start rounding up people to execute. It's just a fascination with the macabre, isn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, we live in a world where people shouldn't be judged for what they actually believe in, as long as they're actually not going out and using that in a negative sense and committing crime and all that sort of thing. What's the real problem? But then the thing is, if someone falls into the wrong place at the wrong time, similar to what Luke has and similar to what Brendan Dassey has in the Stephen Avery case, then they tend to look to try and pick out a stereotype within the individual to make it easier just to point the finger,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what impressed me about Luke is the fact that, despite all the pressure, unlike Brendan Dassey, he didn't cave in straight away to that kind of pressure, and some of the things they were saying to him, the police, not very good. And I think they've been sort of castigated for doing that, but certainly the comparison with Damien Eccles and his devil worshipping, and as Dr. Silkman just pointed out there, there's probably been a lot of people that have done things that has resulted in Marilyn Manson being accused of the sort of the instigator of this, that he's caused people to go out and shoot people. I don't know. I've never listened to any of them. I'm aware of Marilyn Manson. I think some of his lyrics are a bit bizarre, but that's the sort of thing that youngsters can sort of relate to. But as a 14-year-old, I don't see that making somebody want to do what happened to Jody. I personally don't see that. So what I really wanted to do was just a little bit of pictures and stuff. First of all, we've got, let's see, where did I put them? Here somewhere. Nope, that's not it. Hold on a sec. I put them very safe, and now I can't find them. Hold on a sec. Let me have a look for them. Really, what I wanted to do was to compare a little bit of Stephen Avery with. Let's do that first, because I know where that is and it's ready to go. A little bit of comparison of Stephen Avery and Luke Mitchell. And I wanted to just share this. This is an interesting page 19 I need to go to. And then I'd like some of your comments and thoughts on, if you like, the comparisons. Okay. So I'm just going to read from here. I hope you can see that all right. As of the filing of this petition, Mr. Avery, who's been locked up for 10,909 days for crimes he did not commit. Steve has been alive for 20,058 days, so over 54% of his life has been spent behind bars. I mean, are we similar to that with Luke Mitchell?
Absolutely.
50%? Yeah, yeah. Miss Holbach's entire life spanned just 9,355 days. Of the 4,238 days that have passed since her murder, only 9 short days were devoted by law enforcement to identifying the alleged murderer, much less than the average vacation time allocated in 2005 to the law enforcement personnel involved in the 9-day effort leading to the arrest of Mr. Avery. I suppose that's not quite a straight comparison, because it took ages for them to eventually charge Luke. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. You know, when he was returning to school, I mean, how was he treated by fellow students?
Well, to be honest, I had feel by that point, but from my research and sort of having friends in the same circles, I mean, the school themselves were actually alienating him, and he wasn't even allowed to be sort of mixing with people. But I
Yeah,
guess at the end of the day, I mean, what would it have been like, you know, based on the media filling the parents' heads, then the parents then filling their children's heads, you know, so it would have been, it just would have been a sort of lion's den for him, you know, so it would have been pretty horrible, because I know that the school itself, they weren't always the best for picking up on things like bullying and all that sort of
right.
thing. No, I mean, they weren't really. There was a lot of it going on, and a lot of turning a blind eye to it from teachers, despite having it raised to them, you know. But I mean, that's by the by, really, you know. You'll get that in a lot of schools, and St David's, there were no exception to that.
No, unfortunately, you do get that in schools, and it's not just schools, life in general, I suppose. But no, I did hear that he returned to school for what was about 6 9 months before they decided to arrest him.
Yeah, it was quite a while before that actual arrest came into place.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, I mean, the thing with it was, I think we were just hanging off till he was getting that wee bit older, and then it was just literally as soon as they could, they were just right in on him, you know.
yeah. I mean, going back during that time period, then between the murder of Jody and Luke being arrested, what was the sort of typical amount of press coverage of Luke on a weekly basis leading up to his arrest?
Jings, it was pretty mad, because then, I mean, we've seen from the documentary and everything like that the press were actually camped outside
Yeah,
the Mitchell's house, you
yeah,
know. I mean, just like they couldn't breathe, but then there was a journalist trying to get in and get a story or get a picture or anything like that. I mean,
yeah.
that must have been incredibly hard for them as a family, especially the fact of knowing that Luke was actually not the suspect. He was innocent, you know, and it was almost like they were actually they had him down as being guilty before a ball was kicked. The media, you know, so.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I definitely did, yes. I've got some pictures there ready to go. Okay, I wanted to just crack on then, because we've got quite a lot to get through here.
Yeah, I've
Um,
got some points as well to actually bring to.
oh, listen,
Um,
like I said, Derek, like I said, Dazza, it's, I want you to do most of the talking. I will shut up most of the time,
I, I've got. I've almost got a wee agenda that I put together at short notice.
yeah,
To just a few other things, and I've got another case that is of interest that I'll mention a little bit later on.
sure.
But it's a really interesting one, where a guy's been wrongfully convicted, and to be
Mhm.
honest, it's much. I look at it as being a mirror of the Luke Mitchell case, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be quite naive of us here in the UK to think, these wrongful convictions that they happen in America because of their system, because the press are allowed to do what they like, But as people have often pointed out, if America sneezes, Britain ends up getting a cold, and we don't want to end up with a lot of making a murder in a small town scenarios where we're questioning what's actually happening, do we? Anyway, let's just carry on.
No worries.
I got as far as the vacation time allocated in. No, okay, stated differently. Of the 4,238 days that have passed since Miss Holbach's death, only 0.212% of those days have been devoted to finding out who killed her. Again, in Luke's case, we have had sort of appeals court decisions, haven't we? And they've basically just rubber stamped it all, in spite of the fact that a lot of people have grave, misgivings about whether justice was served. Anyway, I just want to carry on. Because the state did not establish a need to establish motive. I mean, that's the thing. The state don't need to establish a motive in the case of Stephen Avery. What was Luke Mitchell's motive for murdering Jody?
That's the thing. He didn't have any motive at all, because then as far as we're concerned, Jody was actually spending time with Luke many a time, and spent time down at the Mitchell's house. Even Corn actually confirmed that, that they used to spend time together and ride around on the grass cutter together. And I mean, knowing the sort of way that they were, personality-wise at school, I have every belief that they would have been just your average happy-go-lucky teenagers at the time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that crime seems so horrific. I just cannot, for the life of me, imagine a 14-year-old doing that. Although we do know that there are some very evil people out there. But I do have difficulty in understanding, why Luke would kill his girlfriend at the time. And the only motive I've ever come across is this because he was into weird music.
Yeah, to be honest, for me, I mean, I look at the actual murder itself, and I look at how heinous it was, and for me, I honestly find it really hard to look at it as being one individual committing that murder because of the severity of the injuries sustained. I think it's been a collective effort to actually get Jody over that wall, because let's be honest, if
Yes.
someone was actually following you and you're actually then fearing for your actual safety at that point, you're hardly going to actually reduce your getaway options by going over into a more secluded area.
Yeah.
To then risk getting caught. I mean, if someone was following you, you'd be running away down the actual the pathway to try and get to the person you were meeting.
Yeah. I mean, it says here, because the state did not need to establish motive, and as we know in Luke's case, the only motive seems to be because he listened to Marilyn Manson. It did not spend any time trying to figure out why Miss Holbach was murdered.
But
I mean, was there ever? I've asked Sandra Lane about this, about victimology. Why this ridiculous attack on a 14-year-old girl?
yeah,
I just don't get that. But and I don't think that saying that, well, because the boyfriend was into this, trying to act cool by being into certain types of music,
yeah,
and saying, I'm inspired by the devil.
yeah.
I don't buy that, I'm afraid. Anyway.
Definitely not. And it's not even as if he was actually into Marilyn Manson, because I
Yeah.
mean, confirmed after that. That I mean, he had a calendar that his stepmom had actually purchased, and he ended up ripping up. The only CD that he did have contained a song that reminded him of Jody.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just for the Tainted Love track list, because that was one that Jody particularly liked. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you've got to cut the guy some slack. He's lost his girlfriend, who I'm sure that he loved very much as a person, given the fact they spent so much time together. You know, I mean, he's probably been heartbroken inside at what's actually happened, and he's probably had his own grieving process.
Oh yes, yeah.
He's probably been playing that song on repeat to try and soothe and comfort himself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we'll just go on. Because the state did not need to establish motive, it did not spend any time trying to figure out why Teresa was murdered. Both Steve and Teresa, and as I say, we can put in there Luke and Jody, are victims of a justice system whose success depends upon the integrity, competence, and devotion of judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, and defense attorneys. Both Teresa, Jody, and Steve, Luke, have yet to receive justice. Miss Holbach has been all but forgotten in the rush to judgment to convict and maintain the conviction of Stephen Avery. Mr. Avery has not been forgotten, but buried alive, because those individuals who were supposed to save him from a second wrongful conviction failed. This is what I really wanted to get onto. Mr. Kratz, he was the prosecutor in Stephen Avery's case. Theory of Teresa's murder is one of the most preposterous tales ever spun in an American courtroom. And this is really where I want to get onto. Okay, so if the prosecutor's theory were true, Steve is a true idiot savant. Now, you were at school with Luke, and I asked you this question earlier. Was Luke a bright pupil?
Absolutely. I mean, I spoke to him a few times, and he was very articulate and certainly very well spoken as well.
Yeah. So, if we just carry on with this next bit, because you know where we're going with this. If the prosecution's theory is true, then Steve / Luke is a true idiot savant. The first tale was as follows. Mr. Avery, the idiot, selects as his victim the only female with whom he had an appointment on the day of her murder. Mr. Avery, the idiot, selects his own bedroom for the commission of an incredibly bloody crime. Mr. Avery, the idiot, handcuffs Miss Holbach to his bed, sexually assaults her, slashes her throat, and stabs her stomach. He carries her lifeless bloody body to the garage. Do you know what? I'm getting fed up of this. I've watched that much American stuff. I keep saying garage, but we say garage, don't we?
Yeah.
Placing her in and taking her out of the back of her RAV4, puts her on a creeper and rolls her to his burn pit, where he tosses her body into a bonfire. However, despite leaving a mountain of incriminating evidence, Steve, the savant, takes over and is able to level the mountain and remove all forensic traces of Teresa Holbach in his trailer and garage in a feat that is comparable to defying the laws of gravity and forensic science. You know exactly where I'm going with this, don't you, Derek?
Yeah.
How much of Jody's blood was found in the hair on the hands of Luke Mitchell?
Absolutely zilch.
And could you explain to me how, and I think it might be useful, I'm trying to think what pictures I've got here. Let me just check on this, because I've got some pictures set up, ready to go. No, why are they not showing up? Hold on a sec. Let me do this then. Let me do this because I've got them ready to go, and I just need to get them called up. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. We're getting somewhere now. Sorry about this. Pictures. In fact, I'll just come out of this for a moment, and I'll just.
Technology is good when it works.
Do you know, technology is fine. It's just the person operating it that's the problem, as you well know.
Oh yeah.
But I really wanted to look at first of all, just to get a better perspective of the area, and you can tell me if I've got some of this stuff right. Yeah, here we go. Here's the first picture I wanted to just look at. This map here, and let's just put this back on screen. So here we go. You can help us with some of the geography here if you would. So we've got Newbattle here, yeah?
Yeah.
And this is Newbattle Abbey Crescent, as it were, isn't it?
Yep, I would have said so, yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this is actually where St David's School is.
Yeah, so that's where the school used to be, yeah.
Because up here is S-Bank Toll, the six-way roundabout, if you like, and
Yeah.
you come down here, you come down that road from S-Bank Toll, past St David's, you get to Newbattle Abbey Crescent, as it's called, which is where Luke lived, and then you go along a bit further, and instead of the road goes off up to Newton Grange, which is down here, or you have to go to Easthouses. There's this road here which cuts through the edge of Newton Grange, leads you into Easthouses.
Yeah.
But of course, people walking, there's this path here, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. And so Luke's got to go from murdering Jody all the way along the path on a summer's day and all the way into Newbattle here, covered in blood.
Yeah,
And yet nobody sees him.
it's bordering on madness, isn't it?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, even if he's committed that crime, you look at the situation and think, well, even if he's had some sort of covering on, he would have had the transfer of some sort of DNA or blood or anything like that on him whilst he was trying to get out of the actual covering. When he's been forensically checked by the actual police, he still had dirt under his fingernails,
Yes.
and his hair apparently hadn't been washed either.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
someone, if they were going to try and disguise having committed a crime like that,
Yeah.
you'd still have to have a significant cleansing process at the other side of it. And that process would have to be so meticulous that you never left anything to chance. So the fact that they pinned it on the fact that they think Luke's done it, and they're under this illusion that he could have actually done that and not had any transfer of any of the blood onto his body. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, we're not playing CSI Miami here. It's literally. I mean, it's literally. It would be impossible, and there's no 14-year-old out there with a calculated mind to be able to do that and discard of any possible traces of the DNA. I'm sorry, but it doesn't wash at all.
Okay. Let's just get back to our comparison then of the two cases. As I say, however, despite leaving a mountain of evidence, Mr. Avery, Luke, the savant, takes over and is able to level the mountain and remove all forensic traces of Miss Holbach, or in the case of Luke, I think yes, there was DNA of Jody, obviously on Luke. She's his girlfriend, but there was no blood of Jody found at all on Luke, and that was the important thing, wasn't it? If literally a couple of hours after this horrendous murder, the amount of blood splashed everywhere would have been ridiculous.
Well, I think the forensics were, when the pathologist was given his account of things, he was talking
Yes.
about five litres of blood. Now,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but 5 litres is, I mean, that's a sizable amount. And for whoever's actually committed that crime, for them to not have had any transfer of blood on them, I would find it highly unlikely. And I'm not a specialist with this, but I do study a lot of wrongful conviction and also actual murder cases and things like that, because
Yes. Yeah.
is something that I actually enjoy following.
Yeah. We want to know what an actual, a genuine murder and conviction looks like, and then we compare it to what we see in Stephen Avery and Luke Mitchell's case, and we can see straight away just by doing a comparison. Framing looks like framing, whatever side of the Atlantic you're on. Carrying on then, as I say. However, despite leaving a mountain of evidence, Mr. Avery, Luke the savant, takes over and is able to level the mountain and remove all forensic traces in the trail of the garage in a feat that is comparable to defying the laws of gravity and forensic science. So we're both in agreement that Stephen Avery and Luke Mitchell have managed to defy the laws of, certainly the laws of forensic science. Okay. The prosecution, recognising the plot flaw in having no forensic evidence in Steve's bedroom and not having the cooperation of Brendan Dassey, decides to rewrite the script. Kratz's new script calls for Avery, the idiot, to re-emerge and shoot Miss Holbach twice in the head while she is lying on his garage floor. Mr. Avery, ever the idiot, except when he's the savant, leaves the magical damaged bullet with Miss Holbach's full DNA profile on his garage floor. Mr. Avery confirms his idiocy by flinging Miss Holbach into the back of her vehicle, undoubtedly to create a blood-stained pattern on the cargo door that would provide Mr. Kratz's blood spatter expert with a chance to display his own idiocy in misrepresenting the stain to fit Mr. Kratz's script. Not to be outdone, Mr. Avery, the savant, reappears and is able to remove his fingerprints, the blowback, blood on the gun, and all of the blood spatter on the garage floor, giving credence to the saying, even miracles take a little time. So I want to talk about, if you would, Luke Mitchell, the idiot.
Yeah, to be honest,
having committed this terrible, terrible crime, and having been able to defy the laws of forensic science by removing all this blood, why is he the one? And I stress this one because this is the thing. Number one, when you get the guilters saying Luke's guilty, they say he led them to the crime scene.
Yeah, we discussed this earlier on, and my view on it is, why would they go to all that trouble to have, obviously, if they believe that he did the crime, then he would have had to have had, obviously, a covering on, because to avoid any traces of the blood going on to him. But then if he's gone to all that trouble and pulled off a forensic masterclass to actually remove him from being forensically connected to the crime, why would he actually go out his way? If the theory that they're going by, that the dog didn't react, which we'll get on to that point very soon because I've got a point to make about that, but if the dog didn't react, then that would imply that Luke actually led them straight to the actual scene of this crime that he's actually pulled off this masterclass in hiding. So, I'm sorry, no one in their right mind, if they've committed that, and they've actually went to so much trouble to actually hide the fact that they have done it, they're not going to lead a search party right to the actual point of the scene. It's just not. It doesn't happen. It won't. It won't ever wash with me that would be something that would have been done. Luke had innocently found found the actual scene and the body, yes, the most tragic of instances. Now, yeah, to touch upon a point about the dog. Now, as you're aware, Paul, I mean, you know that I've owned dogs throughout my life, and you've owned dogs as well. You actually have a dog, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And now, mark my words, I mean, I'm looking at the type of dog that Luke Mitchell's dog was, because it was an Alsatian or a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Now, even if you take out of the equation that dog was trained as a tracker dog, or training as a tracker dog, and had that level of command within the dog. Is it Maya? I think it's named. Yeah. So if you take into account that the dog had tracker background, then that makes it even more conclusive. But I mean, any dog, now you quote me on this, any dog that was passing that scene. Now, bear in mind, a dog's sense of smell, I don't know what the actual ratio is in comparison to human.
Phenomenal.
But a dog, if it picks up a scent of blood, then it's going to have some level of inquisitiveness. The nose would be either down to the ground or up in the air. Now, once a dog catches onto a scent, then it's going to follow that scent, And, I mean, with the dog Maya, if that dog's had a training background in tracking, it's going to be 10 times better at picking up on scents and actually showing and displaying behaviour to actually show that, oh, hang on, I've picked up on something here. So the fact that in the initial statements that were made, they were consistent that the dog had actually shown a behavioural pattern to actually signify that there was something going on, and the dog was up at the actual the break in the wall. Now, you quote me on this, but can you think of the fact of most dogs with a good sense of smell would have alerted in some way to that smell if they picked up on it?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of things that we need to look at as regards to how it was that Luke happened to come across the crime scene. Can I just take you back just a moment, though, because yes, Dr. Stiltman was questioning, no DNA, blood, or other fluids from Jody on Luke. No, there was certainly DNA of Jody on Luke, as I say, because Luke was Jody's boyfriend. But significantly, in this violent attack, there is no blood, not even the experts. They basically took all his clothes off him, and they scanned him totally, to get a sense of if there was any blood, and he'd got dirty hands and unwashed hair.
Yeah.
If there was any blood at all on him, it would have shown up. And this is the big problem, isn't it? There's always one big spanner in the works, isn't there, when it comes to these cases? I wanted to just go forward to another big case that was around about the same time. 10 years previously. 10 years previously. It's not going to show up. I need to go into. So bear with me. I'll get this. Don't worry. I've got this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go up to here, and we're going to get there in a minute. Have you ever heard of a victim called Jamie Bolger?
I have indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Do you know any of the details about that case?
I can't remember off the top of my
It
head.
would be before your time, more or less, wouldn't it? You know?
I think I would have been quite young,
Yeah,
probably.
very young.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, so
forgive the memory a wee bit, because if it's happened when I've been young and out playing
yeah,
football 24/7 and all that, then there's a good chance that it might not be something that comes back to me. But when you mention it, I'll definitely
yeah,
remember. I do recognise the name though.
yeah. Here we go. Particularly horrific case. This one. Um, John Venables and Robert Thompson killed a little lad. They were 10 years old, and they killed little 2.5 year old James Bolger. And they're 10. And I mean, Luke was only 14. So, 4 years older. Yeah, okay. A little bit more savvy. But look at these kids, yeah, it is true that kids can have particularly, violent episodes. Um, Interesting, isn't it? As something that you've alluded to, the fact that there was two of them. I don't think one of them would have done it himself.
Yeah, it doesn't ring like that with me. That literally one of them would have the nerve to do it. It's probably more than likely one's putting them up to it, and then it's a collective collaboration of the two.
The, the, the reason I ask about this particular case is because when you look at the history of John Venables, who seems to be the sort of instigator, if you like, of that particular case, it was they were obviously, charged with this offence of killing this little toddler, and they basically they were 10 at the time. By the time they were 18, they were let out on license. Now, since then, John Venables has proven himself to be this not a particularly savoury character. Being a 14-year-old, if Luke did it, why not just admit to it? And you would be treated as a 14-year-old committing a crime like that. You would not be treated as harshly. There would have been loads of investigation as to why you did it. If he's a smart guy,
Yeah,
why not just take that easy option? Yeah, I did it because I'm obsessed with the devil, but give me 8 years, 10 years, and I'll be
yeah,
cured.
definitely,
Why?
and
Why is a smart guy like him
yeah. To be honest,
protesting his innocence?
that's the thing, and I think it's even still the case now. Even although he's coming up to that 20 years, where he can be considered for parole. Even now, he's maintaining his innocence and saying, "Well, look, I'm not gonna admit to something that I haven't done, because, I mean, by doing that would be if he admits it, it's an admission of guilt, and then, to be honest." If I was in his position, I wouldn't admit to something that I've not done, because that's not how the judicial system should work.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just want to ask you a couple more things, and then we'll get on to some of the topics that you wanted to particularly go through.
No worries.
This whole business of him, Luke, leading to the crime scene. How many people were in the search party?
So there was
Four.
Luke, and then there was Jodi's gran, and there was her sister and her sister's then boyfriend.
Yeah, yeah. There's four of them. So if you're in a search party of four, what is the likelihood of you being one of the people to come across the crime scene, given the fact that it's between Newbattle and Easthouses? Well, there's a 25% chance to begin with. Now,
Yeah,
the fact that it was behind the wall, and I think it's worth mentioning, isn't it, particularly for people that don't know this, it was Roan's Dyke path that the
yeah.
murder occurred in, but it didn't actually occur on the path, did it?
No, it was over the other side of the break in the wall.
And and,
Um,
and, and is that what Dyke actually means? Dyke is a Scottish word for
it's a wall, yeah.
a
So
wall.
essentially, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, looking at that as well, and I've always said this, but see, I think that would be a natural thing as well for someone. You know, if you were out looking as part of a search party, you're going to be alerted to things and places to check. Now, when there's a break in the wall, you might actually have a look generally over there anyway. So
Yeah.
it's likely that that the actual scene would have been discovered anyhow. You know,
Yeah.
it just so happens that when it came down to it, it was the dog had actually alerted to that, you know, because the
Yeah.
dog sense. Because let's be honest, a human's not going to smell blood um, as well as what a dog is. You know, I would find it very, very surprising if you'd smell anything like that
Yes.
with the smell of woodland round about and all that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, again, just for the benefit of people that don't know quite the sort of geography, the layout of the scenario, we're talking about a if I maybe pop up that other one there, yeah, this one here. So we're talking about a stretch of path that runs from there to there. It's called Roan's Dyke. Roan apparently means a particular type of coloured horse. So presumably this particular path has been there for quite a while, but there is this wall that runs the entire length of the path. And you've got this, I suppose it's about a 15, 20 foot wide bit of woodland behind the wall, haven't you? Behind
Yeah,
this hole in the wall, this which is right here, this hole in the wall, which was
it's
obviously
quite,
created by like a tree falling over. So there's this V shape, and you know, forgive me for for being disingenuous to grannies, but I can't see Granny being the one that's going to want to hop over the wall first. So of the four people, and we're saying it's a 25% chance of it's Luke finding the crime scene. I think we've narrowed it down to it's one of three, isn't it? Because Granny's not going to be the first one jumping over the wall. This wall is quite high up. Well,
oh,
it's about
definitely.
waist height. It's about waist height.
Yeah, so I mean, it would take a wee bit of doing for,
Yeah,
and taking nothing away. I'm not being disrespectful for to anyone that's older, but I
yeah.
mean,
You mean
even
like me?
even now, I mean, at my height, I would struggle to get over that wall. You know, and because I mean, if you're shorter as well, you're gonna find it difficult to get over that. You know.
Yeah, Paula Gardner. I thought this was going to be an interview with further information. It's just two people chatting about what's already been said. No, I've never spoken to Derek, about quite a lot of this. I'm sorry that we have disappointed you in our chat. There's nothing I can do about that. I have never tried to mislead anybody about what this chat is about, other than the fact that Derek is a former pupil, as I say, of the St. David's High School and a former pupil of mine. And yeah, we just want to discuss what's going on.
Yeah, the
We don't have any more information other than what you've got.
yeah.
However, the one bit of information I think, Derek, that you can enlighten us on is how has the Facebook page developed
Oh yes.
since
So
since before the documentary? Since we first found out the documentary was coming out, I think that's when the Facebook page was first set up.
yeah, yeah. So absolutely, it's actually taken off at some ferocity. I mean, I'm fortunate enough. I'm one of the actual admins on the page, and I'm lucky enough to actually be part of Sandra's right-hand team. So we're actually assisting Sandra in the cause of our search for Luke's exoneration, and our main aim is to try and ensure that we can get an independent case review done. So as once that's done, I mean, you've seen now from two documentaries, first of all, the Frontline Scotland one, and then secondly to that, the one on Channel 5 last week. We've seen from both these documentaries that cast serious doubt over the integrity of the conviction itself. So if we're able to get an independent case review, then it's going to get to the point that, I mean, that, as I've said to people within the group, you know, that once the independent case review takes place, if we can push for that, it will take care of itself. I can assure you of that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you as members in coming into the group, and have been so supportive of the cause. I mean, us admins have been flat out, and we've had to actually bring in more people to the team to try and facilitate the running of that group. But I have to say wholeheartedly, it's been really, really great to see the uptake on the support, and certainly the petition as well that's been raised. You know, the support on that's, it's ever grown. Now, what I would say to people is, whilst we can't say an awful lot more than what's already out there at the moment regarding the case, we kindly ask that individuals are not speculating on the actual group and name dropping and things like that, because the reason is
why is that, Derek? Go on. Why is that? Why can't we just go throw out a whole load of names like the press did with Luke Mitchell? I mean, that's what the press did with Luke Mitchell. Why can't we do the same?
Well, the thing is, two wrongs don't make a right, Paul, and
exactly.
That's. I mean, we're better than that, you know, and we'll do things through the right channels. And as I've said to people, and I get messages all the time, people messaging me privately to discuss the case. I've had numerous friend requests. It's just getting insane. But what I would ask of people is just be mindful that there is still a long process that needs to be undertaken here. And we'd ask that people be respectful, that when we're actually trying to fight to get this independent case review, we certainly don't need any of the good work on that being undone by speculation and basically doing what we've criticised the media for doing all those years ago. And certainly even now, there's still been reports. You know, just the other day, I was alerted to a few articles that were coming from a Daily Record correspondent, and she's, to be honest, it was all emotive. She was literally looking at her own personal view and her hatred towards Luke. And we even invited her on to have a live chat with Sandra to discuss her theories. And guess what? Lo and behold, she politely declined. And do you know why that is? Because she's happy to sit behind all these articles and post all this negative stuff that, quite frankly, all she's trying to do is stir the pot and try and get people to turn on Luke. But what she fails to realise is a lot of what she's posting is unfounded, and when called out on it, she can't really answer anything on it, you know?
Mm-hmm. There was just one other point I wanted to make about the John Venables, Jane Bolger case, and that is the fact that when John Venables and John Thompson, is that their names? I think it was John Venables and John Thompson. When they were let out of prison or let out of their secure, sorry, let me do this now. Their names were, oops, so Daisy, this isn't going too well. Let's do that. Let's do that. When these two characters, as youngsters, obviously convicted of horrendous crime, but when they were released, they were given new identities. You know, I mean that's what Luke Mitchell could have gone for, couldn't he? He could have gone for saying, "Yeah, okay, I did it, but now I need,
Yeah.
you know, when I'm let out because I'm cured of this devil worship, I need I need the same sort of protections. You know,
Yeah.
I need to be given, a house to live in, and this all this protections of change of identity. Relocated somewhere. It's yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. You would have had a carbon copy of exactly what he would have needed to do with that case there. Because then, in all honesty, I mean, they've been given new identities and everything like that. He would have just been able to follow the same route exactly as you say.
yeah.
But then he's not done that for a very good reason.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. In the same way that Stephen Avery refused to accept guilt in the Penny Bernstein case, did 18 years until DNA evidence finally cleared him. I mean, there's absolutely there is the possibility that there could still be, developments in Luke Mitchell's case that helps towards,
Yeah,
actually identifying who the real perpetrator was, as in Stephen Avery's
yeah,
case. But
yeah,
I suppose the bottom line is whether we call them guilters or haters. Guilters because they believe in Steve's guilt, Luke's guilt, or haters because they simply dislike this person that has been identified to them as the perpetrator. So they're haters. They just hate these people just because in their mind they're clearly guilty.
yeah.
My question would be, what are they afraid of in people asking, was it a fair trial? Have we convicted the right people? Because if you haven't convicted the right person, you have done to that, you have made them a victim in the same way that Teresa Holbach and
Yeah.
Jody Jones have been made victims. To bury somebody alive, it's to me it's pretty serious. I mean, so finally, what are your thoughts? Is it 100% that Luke is innocent, or is it just the fact that did he receive a fair trial? Are there
Well,
questions that need to be answered?
that's the thing. I mean, I absolutely believe that he's innocent, and I believe that the trial as well. Looking over what I've actually learnt about the trial, I spent a lot of time, as you're well aware, I've spent a lot of
Yeah,
time looking into this, and we've been researching this. I've been working pretty much on this case for a couple of years now,
yeah,
and certainly from what I've taken from it, there's been a lot of things that have been either left out at the trial or not emphasized enough, and I think when you look at some of the stuff that's in there, like the eyewitness account, for example, with the drive-by. Now, that this person was so adamant that was Luke that she'd seen, but yet when it came to actually being inside the actual the court,
yeah.
she couldn't
Finally,
even.
a conscience came forward, and she realised that yeah, she was maybe going along with the police and the press up until then, and
Yeah,
then just thought, hold on a second.
there's definitely. I mean, you mention a good word there when you say conscience, and
Yeah,
to be honest, there out there there's people or persons that actually they are aware of what's happened, and to be honest, consciences can do a lot to people. When you've got a conscience and it eats away at you, eventually, not straight away, but then there will be a point where all it takes is one slip, and then it'll all come crashing down. you know.
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, we were left at the end of the documentary, the two-part documentary, which I thought was very, very, very well done. And I must admit, I immediately sent a message to Sandra to say, fantastic. This is just what's needed because, you know, she wrote that excellent book, Innocence Betrayed, which
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody knows about. I'm
Yeah.
sure, I'm sure they are. I would hope that
Yeah, there's been
they
a
would get a
lot
copy.
of, there
Yeah,
has actually been a real growth in the amount of demand for that book
yeah,
because it's something that, to be honest, Sandra's done such a marvelous job in portraying what the media were hiding from the public domain back then regarding the actual case, and
yeah,
I would highly recommend the book. What I would say though is, if you are reading the book, you need to really pay attention to the. You'll quote me on that, Paul. When you're reading through the book, there's parts that I had to actually read over a few times just
oh
to
yeah,
understand the actual way of where it was going.
yes,
And
yeah,
I think if you're going to arm yourself with that kind of knowledge about the case, then I would say you've got to take the time. And if it's not going in one day, just take a wee bit of time off and then go back to it. That's what I've kind of had to do a few times with the actual book.
yeah,
Um, but definitely, I mean, I've learned so much actually through Sandra as well. You know, she's been such a real good support for my learning of the case, and
yes,
your learning as well, because then we've
yeah,
been in dialogue as a team for a while, you know, and
exactly.
there's never a question that's went to Sandra that's been too much trouble.
Yeah, she always has the answer straight away. Absolutely, she's invested so much time and energy
Although
in this
Although
case.
sometimes, although sometimes I have to say to her, you know, when she's talking about legalities and terms and stuff, I'm like, what's that? You know, but then she soon breaks it down for the novice here, you know. But then
Yeah.
that's the
Okay. So the advantages then of the documentary is obviously set up a Facebook page, huge amount of interest in the Facebook page.
yeah.
Caution, if we're going to exercise caution, it would be, please, don't try and deny other people the presumption of innocence that that Luke was denied. Yeah.
Absolutely. What I would say to people is just be mindful and be respectful of the actual case and the work that Sandra's put in. And I mean, we're in dialogue with Sandra daily and everything. And
Yeah.
I mean, the team and I think I speak for the rest of the team, you know, we're doing our absolute best to keep that page running with a sort of view of trying to garner support for Luke, but at the same time, we shouldn't. I mean, the amount of stuff that we've had to actually filter through, and we can't actually post the comments about it because it purely would be detrimental to the actual any stage of taking it to an independent case review. We don't need that kind of publicity from our side of it. Let the media and the papers do whatever the hell they want in the background, you know, because at the end of the day, I mean, I think I speak for each and every member of the actual group and say that the main objective has to be seeking the truth and getting Luke and Jody their justice that they deserve. And I mean, it's in the title of the actual group. But I
I,
mean,
I, I don't have any reservations about trying to make the press accountable for what they say.
yeah, to be honest,
I'm
I,
quite happy to have a go at them if they're happy to perpetuate this narrative when there's
yeah,
so many question marks about this case.
yeah,
Well, Paul has come back with a question, and basically, Paul, I think you've basically asked what I asked right at the start. Does anyone know if Luke was ever asked if Jody had a fear of anyone in the days leading up to the murder? And I think again, this all comes back to this victimology. I think if when you're looking for The who, you need to know the why. You need to know the why
Yeah.
that will lead you to the who. I'm gonna say cheerio, but Do you know anybody in Adelaide, Australia?
I don't.
Okay. I'm gonna leave us then with a message from Adelaide, Australia. Just shows how widespread this case is. Interesting. So, Dr. Silkman, my good friend from Australia, this case is just as controversial and emotive as the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases. Aren't we just seeking the truth and justice for the victims and their families? Absolutely, Doctor. Couldn't agree more. We just want the truth, And look, if it turns out, right, that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are guilty, I've already told the sheriff of Manitowoc County I will be the first on the phone to him to apologise for ever questioning the integrity of his officers.
Oh,
But
definitely.
but the question should then be asked, but what if I'm right?
Absolutely, and that's the thing. I know I mentioned something to you previously regarding the case. Now, the theory is that if there's more than one person that's been responsible for this, now, bearing in mind there's a lot of theories out there that it could be more than one person. There is a law out there that means that no one's going to be protected from it if they were actually accessories to the actual
Yeah.
crime itself. They don't necessarily need to be the one that's actually murdered, but
No.
in the presence, and what they look at is they look at the potential of the person being capable of doing the crime. Now, joint enterprise law will actually kick in with that, and it does mean that, as I say, if it transpires that there's more than the one individual involved with it, then I mean, if it all comes out with that, which I'm hoping it does, for the purpose of getting the right person or persons behind bars, essentially, if possible, then generally, I mean, I honestly think that law will kick in, and it will actually, if that is proven, it's going to cause a lot of collateral damage along the way. Now, the purpose of seeking the truth for Luke's exoneration is not really to cause collateral damage, but I mean, they need. I think if you're looking at it from the other side, you need to see what this actual case has done to Luke's family. You know, the livelihood of Corin's been ruined. You know, her business and everything
Yeah.
like that. I mean, the family's been literally ostracized in society, and it's just been awful, you know. So there's always going to be collateral when it comes to a case of this such high profile like this, you know, and people need to understand that when it comes to that. I mean, there's no winners in it, unfortunately. You know, it's just a real horrible, heinous crime that's been committed, and all we're trying to do is find the truth. And
Yeah.
I think everyone out there that's supporting this group, that's all we want is the truth,
Yeah.
because we don't feel we've had the truth.
Yeah. I think we could quite happily finish on, for example, Jerry Buting's message to the Stephen Avery supporters over there in Manitowoc at the last rally. What can we do? We, as supporters of the truth, we keep talking about it. We might not always have the fantastic new information that we can share with everybody, but we'll just keep talking about it and just keep it in the spotlight and keep shining a light on the bad actors, whether
Yeah,
it be the state of Wisconsin, whether it be some of the journalists that are quite happy to maintain this conviction, given the fact that there are so many questions about it,
yeah.
or whether it be that law enforcement. Um,
Let's be
Again, I don't think we wake up every morning. I certainly don't wake up every morning thinking, now what can I do to undermine police, law enforcement in Wisconsin and the Scottish borders. I don't wake up, and I don't think you do either. We probably
It's
both wake
not,
up with a tune
yeah,
in our
yeah. It's not ever been an intention to do that. At the
head.
end of the day, we have to look at it this way. This isn't going to go away.
No.
The group that we have in place at the moment, it's growing daily, and the
Yeah,
support is going out there, and we're going to keep talking about it
yeah,
until such times, because we want to keep it out there, because
yeah,
it's the best thing to actually force the hand to try and get this actual independent case review.
yeah.
And I mean, we're all the team, and I and Sandra. We've been heavily invested in trying to seek that for some time. And Sandra's, I mean, she's been doing this now for what is it, 17 years or something
Yeah.
now? So 17 years of her life. Do you honestly think that she'd be going and putting herself through all that if she
Yeah.
thought there was a shred of doubt that she could be wrong?
I mean, it's just one of those things, isn't it? You support the other team, the minority, which was the case because everybody, well, not everybody, but clearly yourself, had reservations way back in 2003. You thought yourself,
Yeah,
seriously, Luke? Nah.
yeah,
But a lot of people have, the sort of, if you like, the jury of popular opinion has been poisoned by what they've heard in the press. It's an injustice to, obviously, to Luke, Karini's mother, and to Jody Jones and their family. And I must admit, one of the things I am concerned about is that the Jones family try and align themselves behind this conviction of Luke Mitchell as if they want this conviction of Luke Mitchell to stay, no matter what questions are then
yeah,
brought up. This hiding behind this conviction, saying, "Well, he was found guilty. End of story." That
yeah.
that, that for me is very troubling. The fact that you can't see. Hold on a sec. Police Scotland. Have you got the right person? Have you?
Yeah.
Because there's no bigger insult to the memory of Teresa Holbach or Jody Jones if you hold Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, and Luke Mitchell in prison for crimes that they didn't
Well,
do.
that's the thing. I mean, I think I speak for every parent out there when I say that if your child suffered such a brutal murder, you're going to move mountains to try and get to the bottom of who it really was. And if there's any sort of element of doubt out there, you're going to actually say, well, hang on, wait a minute. Is this correct? It's literally the case that it could be wrong, and then you would then be casting doubt over it. But I'm a bit bemused and baffled, to be quite frank, as to why there's not been that sort of seeking of the truth from that side. I
Yeah.
think I'd be frantically going round and trying to get the answers.
Okay.
It seems a little bit strange.
Yeah. Just to finish up, there's a march being organised to Holyrood the 14th. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that there was someone actually on the page organising the actual the march, but I've to be honest, due to the sort of restrictions and
I'm
everything
going to
with
say, I unfortunately, much as I think it's a great idea, I think at the moment you've got to be very careful about such things.
yeah,
Although I'm not gonna tell anybody that they shouldn't do it, but
it's more so you don't want to give the sort of the media anything negative to actually feed off,
oh
So
right, sorry, hold on a
uh,
sec. Um, I hope I can pronounce your name correctly. Tallulah 78X.
yeah, she's one of the
4th of April. Tallulah. Was that not the name of the sledge in Cool Runnings?
I
Tallulah.
actually don't know. I don't know.
or was that not one of the names that they suggested, Tallulah? And the guy said, Tallulah. And oh no, I don't like that. And he said, well, that's my mum's name. And then they went for Cool Runnings.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Tallulah, I think.
That's some memory, but anyway.
Some mental memory, yes, exactly, yes. Anyway, Derek, it's been epic having a chat with you. And as I say, to anybody that thought that we were going to be, busting the case wide open, and unfortunately, much as we would like to, we don't, we can't, and it's not for us to do that. It's for the legal system to act the way it should act. But what we can do is we can talk about the case, and don't worry, everybody. I think just about everybody's message that has come up, I've had an eye on the messages. It's been phenomenal. Thank you very much for popping in and having a listen and
definitely.
And Derek, keep practicing, and I'll expect a few more Herlocks reel next time.
Yeah. So just before I go as well, we'll need to try and pick up and have a chat again at some point. I want to thank you for having me on board with this. I'm sorry we never got a chance to discuss everything that I had in the there, but
save that for next time. Save that for next time. Yeah, there's so much to discuss.
Yeah. I've got a very good case that I would like to actually discuss with you at some stage, and it's actually pretty close to where I live now. It happened just down in Curluke, in South Lanark.
As I say, unfortunately, we cannot be so insular as to think, wrongful convictions. No, they would never happen here.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Even the police detective that I spoke to, that was adamant that, Luke Mitchell, evil is sin. He said, we got chatting about wrongful convictions. He said, if you want to know about wrongful convictions, look at the Stephen Kitchcote case down in, I think it was down in Rochdale. And it happens here, unfortunately it does. And really it's up to us, just normal people, to say to the people in charge, we're not happy with this. You need to do something about it. But yes, I'll look forward to having you on again soon. So anyway, I'll let you have the last word, Derek.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who's made the effort in supporting the group. Without you guys behind us, we can't achieve this final goal. Keep sharing the word about the case, and we'll hopefully try and get some information into the actual the group, and we'll keep making videos. We'll do live chat. We'll try and answer your questions as best as we can, provided that we're not under any legal obligations with it. Then we'll try and inform you as best as we can. If we can't answer the question, just please bear with us, because there's not everything we can say for legal purposes.
Exactly. So you had the final say, and now you can have the final play. See you later, Derek.
Good night, Paul. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.